Hello, you beautiful people. So, I'm guessing a lot of you already saw the drip marketing for Sparkle's new form releasing in patch 4.0 either through the official post or my thumbnail, and I know that all of you guys are interested in her, so today, I'm going to talk about literally all the info that we have on Sparkle's new 5-star form as of now. Along with this, we will also take a look at the main mechanic of her kit, her playstyle or her team rotations, her team synergies, and her best in slot relic or planar set as well. Also, I do this thing whenever we get a new drip marketing, so continuing the custom, I want to ask you, how do you feel about her drip marketing and her final design? Personally, I'm quite sure that a lot of you already know I'm a pretty big Sparkle enjoyer, so I would have ended up liking her design either way just because it's Sparkle, but overall, I would say that her new design does look quite pleasing to the eyes. Honestly, I know I just said that Sparkle is one of my favorite characters in Star Rail for a lot of reasons, especially her design along with her personality, and I'm pretty confident that whenever you look at a Star Rail popularity poll or something like that, you'll always find Sparkle at the top or very close to the top because she really is just that popular. What Sparkle isn't, though, is a very meta character. Like, it was always kind of unfortunate that they released Robin just 2 patches after releasing Sparkle, and Robin basically overshadowed Sparkle in all of her teams other than maybe Dan Hung Il or QQ. Later on in patch 3.4, Sparkle did see just a tiny bit of a resurgence with Archer's release because of their synergy together, but it still wasn't really enough to bring her properly back into the meta. Now, due to all these reasons, when I saw a source mention that Sparkle would be getting a new 5-star form, I was honestly pretty pumped to see her design and what her kit will be based around this time. Not gonna lie though, I'm now realizing that I've been yapping for quite a while, so let me just shut my mouth and talk about the stuff that you actually clicked on this video for. Before we begin, if you are someone who is planning to pull for any of the future characters, you might just want to check out Lubar, because here you can get a total of 25% off on all of your purchases. Just to give you an example, I'll try buying this 3280 Nyric Shard pack, which costs $43, and this same pack costs me $50 if I buy it from the in-game shop. You can easily tell that it's way cheaper, and the top-up process is also really easy, as all you need to do is enter your UID right here, and then choose your respective server. Also, as you know, Christmas is almost here, and to celebrate it, Loot Bar is hosting a pretty big event where you can earn a lot of stuff, like a 100% off coupon on any of the packs, a free express pass, and even double Loot Bar points, which can basically help you purchase a lot for free. Yep, if you're interested in getting a bunch of stuff for free, check out their website from my link given in the description of the pinned comment, and I hope all of you win a lot of prizes from the events. Moving on, let me just mention the usual disclaimer that this version of her kit is not the final one, and it's very likely that we will see some totally new mechanics and other changes in her actual kit, so take all this info with a grain of salt. With that being said, let's begin without wasting any more of your time or energy. Okay, starting with the basic information about Sparkle's new form, we've known for a while that she's going to be a fire-type unit who follows the path of Elation. By the way, her being a fire-type unit is actually pretty interesting, as we haven't had a non-break fire character for pretty much an entire year, and the last one we had was Jiaoqiu, so it's kind of nice to get a unique fire character, as it's really crazy that the best fire DPS in HSR has been Firefly for almost 2 years now, but Sparkle is coming to break that streak. Now, talking more about Sparkle, she is set to be positioned somewhat like how Aglaya was positioned last year, where she introduces the new path with its new mechanics, while having a kit built perfectly to demonstrate all these mechanics to us. On top of this, Sparkle will be taking the role of a main DPS, just like Aglaya, which is fitting considering that generally when we get a new archetype, they tend to start things off with a powerful DPS. Being a main DPS isn't all there is to her though, as it's been stated by quite a lot of sources that she may potentially have usage as a sub DPS as well, kind of like a reverse Evernight situation where her main DPS capabilities come first, but she might switch roles after a while, which I'll talk more about later in the video. But before we get there, let's start by talking about her base kit mechanics. So, Sparkle's main gimmick is being a skill point-based damage dealer. Yep, I know most of you already know this though, especially if you've watched my previous videos on her, but what you guys might not understand is how she is going to utilize these skill points. Personally, I think she's going to be a lot different from the current options and use skill points in her own unique way, which you'll understand why as we proceed further into the video. First of all, Sparkle will definitely be an attack scaling character who will want crit substats just like the classic hyper carry units, and I already kind of like this, as it's a nice change from the HP meta of Amphareus. Along with this, it also looks like Sparkle will be closer to Dan Hung Il rather than someone like Archer when it comes to her specific playstyle. Now, what I mean by this is that instead of doing a bunch of smaller or repeated attacks, she'll likely be a character that either consumes a large amount of skill points at once or passively drains SP over time to drop a massive nuke on the enemies. If my memory is correct, we actually did get some info about this a long time ago, and it lines up really well with another bit of info which mentioned that Sparkle is supposedly meant to have a decent amount of synergy with her older form. That said though, it's obviously not quite that simple. Basically, the same bit of info also stated that even though Sparkle's older form does work with her newer form, she is likely not going to remain in her best team forever. Now, because of this bit of info, I personally think the source was indirectly telling us that Sparkle won't just be another skill point consuming hyper carry DPS, and rather than that, she'll likely function as more of a general DPS or sub DPS whose kit heavily relies on the unique mechanics of the Elation path. Moving on, what I discussed just now actually ties really well when we talk about her team synergies, and as I stated before, her teams will likely have Yae Sakura along with the Elation main character, or in short EMC. For now, I'm basing this team synergies part of the video on a somewhat old bit of info which claimed that Elation teams would follow a very similar path to Remembrance teams, essentially becoming mono-path teams at the very end. Now, before you say anything, because I know you really want to, I'm aware that Aglaya was pretty much excluded from the mono-remembrance setup in Amphareus thanks to Castoris. Honestly though, I don't see them doing the same thing with Sparkle at all because she's very popular and clearly expected to sell well, so I'd be very surprised if she wasn't a core part of Elation teams all the way to the end. Also, because of this recent event which was practically based around Elation and teased its potential mechanics, I think that Sparkle might have different effects depending on her position in the team order. I'm mostly saying this because team order was a huge deal in this event, so it wouldn't be a shocker at all if they put this concept directly into her kit. On top of this though, they're probably going to give her some form of skill point recovery in order to make her self-sufficient, which would make sense because she's supposed to be a very skill point reliant DPS. Alright, coming back to the team synergies and talking about sustains, I'm very confident that her best option will be Dan Hung PT by far. Yep, like I mentioned earlier, Sparkle is definitely going to scale off attack, and Dan Hung PT is a very decent attack buffer who can also generate a ton of skill points as well, because he basically never needs to use his skill. Other than that, call me crazy, but I personally have this really big belief that Syrhydra will end up being one of her best pairings, especially if Sparkle turns out to be a skill spammer like Anaxa, but focused more on dealing big nukes. In theory, this makes Syrhydra a perfect partner for Sparkle, and considering that she's likely going to rerun in version 4.0, you might just want to start saving up for both of them. Also, I'm just going to put it out there right now that if Sparkle ends up feeling a little underwhelming on her release, you can honestly just blame it on her not having enough good teammates rather than blaming her actual kit. I mean, just from taking a single look at her kit, it's pretty obvious that it's designed while keeping the future units in mind, and she will likely get way better as more Elation characters are released. I know mentioning all this stuff right now when we're like 2 months away from her release banner is kinda weird, but I really wanted to say it just in case we end up going through another Doom posting cycle, because after the last few cycles, I'm a little tired of it, and I'm sure you're as well. At last, let's talk about the Relic set and the Planar set that is likely going to be Sparkle's best in slot, because I know some of you might want to start pre-farming for her already. So, starting with the Planar set first, this set, which was released in version 3.7, is definitely going to be Sparkle's best in slot, and I mean, it's like painfully obvious, right? This set literally has Sparkle on its design, and it revolves around buffing characters who use a lot of skill points, which just confirms our previous info of Sparkle being a SP-reliant DPS or sub-DPS. Now, as for her Relic set, we do have some info which says that in version 4.0, we're going to get a total of 2 new Relic sets, and one of these sets is going to be entirely made for Sparkle. I know this bit of info was probably really obvious, as we've always gotten a new Relic set along with a new planet's release, but I wanted to mention it just in case anyone was wondering which Relic set Sparkle will use. Anyways, with that, we're totally done discussing Sparkle's preliminary or pre-release kit in detail, and honestly, I'm pretty positive about her kit. For now, her kit already seems decently strong, and I would say that at the current point, we don't even know half the stuff that her proper kit will do, which just means that she is only going to get better and better from now. Personally, I'm definitely going to pull for her as she's literally one of my favorite characters, and I'm also planning to pull basically all the Elation characters, so it all just works out in the end. Do let me know though how you feel about her kit and her design, because I'm quite curious to know your thoughts on Sparkle. Also, if you ended up watching until the end, you might want to consider subscribing as well. With that being said, I just want to say I love y'all and I will see you in another one.